no one condones the killing of kids, obviously, and it was also, really tragic what happened in Parkland. I think there's two sides to kind of how that problem gets solved, and I didn't agree with the way that they're proposing that the problem gets solved. That's why I didn't choose to participate in the walkout.
I did participate in the walkout because it was something that really mattered to me. The walkout was a national school movement made by high schoolers all over the United States to come together in solidarity and take a moment to honor the lives that were lost to the gun violence.
One of my teachers kind of said that she would really enjoy it if I did, so I felt kind of pressured into doing that.
I kind of wanted to raise awareness towards just gun violence and keeping students safe.
I think that if you're a convicted felon, you should not be able to purchase guns. If you have, if doctors have observed that you are unfit to have a firearm, I think obviously the government should be able to do something about that. But I don't think the government should put many other restrictions than that on firearms. And that, the Second Amendment is something that was written into our Constitution. And, the Second Amendment wasn't created so you could go hunting or so you could go, sport shooting. It was to defend yourself against a tyrannical government. And while I don't believe that we're at that point right now, I think that, if you look back in history, the Revolutionary War was started because the British tried to take away the colonists' guns. Right before the Holocaust, Hitler went and took everyone's guns. So I think an armed population is a good thing.
The Second Amendment it's super outdated. I mean, it was made for the Revolution when people needed their muskets and whatever. But right now we have a huge defense system in place, and we have a police system, which doesn't work all the time, I'll bet. But the guns that are accessible to people right now, they shouldn't be accessible to people. An AK-15, that's a military rifle, and people don't need to have that in their homes.
We don't have any gun control right now. Pretty much anything that we do have is kind of restricting really limited things. I know in this current presidency, a lot of background check stuff was loosened, and it's just not safe right now.
I don't think that we need things like assault rifles or automatic weapons, and I think that in order to exercise the right to bear arms, you need to have mental competency and you need to pass a background check, and I think that the American people need to feel safe.
I'm glad that we have a resource officer at school. I'm glad that we have lots of security cameras and people monitoring those.
Well, of course I feel safe at school. I don't think that I'm in any real danger.
I feel somewhat safe at school, and it's just a day-to-day thing at this point, because since we were born and since we even started school shootings have been happening. So I've kind of grown accustomed to it at this point.
I feel very safe at school because statistically, it is a safe place to be as a whole. Okay. The one thing that I don't think makes a whole lot of sense are the gun-free zones. What a gun-free zone does say to someone that's mentally ill or someone that's going to make a challenge of some violence is going to be for them to go to a gun-free zone. So gun-free zones don't make a whole lot of sense. But yes, I feel safe at school. Don't have a problem with that.
2 years ago, I would say with hands down, I feel safe at school. This year, I don't know if I can say the same thing. The Parkland shooting scares me. The political climate right now scares me. Las Vegas scares me. And I think that realistically today, I have to have some degree of fear in the job I do and in the place I live, and that stinks.
we could create a national agency under the Department of Homeland Security, which arms security guards, that are trained in conjunction with police to be at our schools, or another way is a select few teachers could do some rigorous training and mental health evaluations and be able to legally possess a firearm on campus.
One thing that I think could happen is just raising awareness and becoming more aware that there is gun violence happening and that we could do something to stop it, and just, making those laws happen.
The reporting systems that are put in place, along with communication between staff and students and building rapport, relationships obviously are very important, and just having that knowledge that when you report something that it will get dealt with and people will get spoken to, and that there will be a follow-up, especially when it comes to safety in schools.
I would feel safer if assault rifles were right out banned. And I also think that we should have stricter age limits on all firearms. I don't understand why it's not 21. If you have to be 21 to have a drink of alcohol, you should be 21 to have a gun.
I think that anyone that commits mass murder, whether it's with a gun, whether it's with vehicles, with chemicals, they obviously have a disconnect in their brain to be able to just senselessly kill that many people, because no one, normal everyday people just don't go out and kill. That's not a normal thing. I'm tentative to say that it's a mental health issue, because there are a lot of people that have mental health issues that don't commit random acts of mass violence.
I think it's an American problem. Other countries have mental health problems, but they have put an end to the gun violence by putting in regulations. Look at Australia. They had one huge mass shooting in the 90s, and they put in a ton of regulations, and they've never had one since. And do they have mentally unstable people? Yeah. And are people mentally ill everywhere? Yeah. But they have put this, they put students' lives above the right to own unnecessary rifles.
I think that mental health is just a portion of the issue when it comes to gun violence. There are people that commit violent crimes with guns that don't have mental illnesses. So there are a number of different things that can contribute to gun violence and to the reason why people do the things that they do.
I think that it's a gun issue, that it's far too easy to get a gun. It's far too easy to get a really destructive firearm.
While we do have resources, I think that sometimes it's hard for kids to use those resources, because sometimes you don't realize that you necessarily have a mental health issue, therefore you don't really want to get care, and I'm not really sure how to solve that problem.
I've never had to go into a therapist at all, but I've heard from people that have depression or anxiety that right now it's hard to see a counselor. There's a big demand for having time with a therapist in our schools, and we don't necessarily meet those demands all the time.
It's a work in progress, I think, in not just in our school, but in other schools also. I feel that there could be more done, and there could be more reaching out to students, and not just students who we think need help, but just talking to everyone in general.
I think that the counselors here at Mount Vernon High School are doing a great job with what they're supposed to do. As of receiving mental health services here on campus, I know that we do have some of that, but the most important thing is for them to be able to refer students that are struggling with issues such as mental health to the appropriate agencies, so that they can get more services from them, and counseling or whatever the services are that they need in order to get well.
We've got a counseling team that will try to identify and evaluate any problem before it happens. So we're as good here as anybody can be with the resources we have.
We need a better large-scale social emotional health program here, and I wish that we were moving more in that direction, but we just don't have the funds for that, and we need to fully fund. If we're going to fully fund education, we need to fully fund mental health for students.
Gun-free zones, they are a target for mass murder to happen, because the people that want to hurt as many people as they can don't want to go into a gun store where everyone has a gun, because they know that they're going to get shot right away. They want to target schools and sporting events or concerts where guns are not allowed, because they know that they're going to be the only one with a gun, therefore they have the upper hand.
I don't think that's fair to make teachers have to think about, the lives of their students in that manner. And it's not, it's not fair to the students either. Like, what if a student got a hold of that gun? Then it's even easier. If they're in our schools already, you could just take that and cause some serious harm. And teachers don't know how to use them. We've already seen that in Florida. A man had a gun and he was a teacher and it misfired and shot a student. That's just not sensible.
My opinion on having armed teachers, well, I definitely think that there's a lot to look into that. It's not a simple yes or no answer. I think personally I would feel a little safer if we had armed teachers.
Unfortunately, the biggest issue when it comes to this is that I know what it's like to carry around a firearm 10 hours a day as a police officer, and it's a significant burden, if you would. And I think that just the whole idea of arming teachers and giving them that ability will be, quite frankly, an overwhelming thing for the majority of teachers.
Having security that's unarmed doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you have a situation where you have deadly force, someone coming in wanting to cause bodily harm to someone with deadly force, you have to meet deadly force with deadly force. So for us to have security guards without the training, that's a really important part of having armed teachers or security guards, is they have to be trained and they have to meet force with force. We have one security man here who's a retired police officer. Why does the school board not have him being armed? He should be armed.
No. Schools should be safe places. Guns are not safe at schools. We have teenagers here, and I'm not trained to use a firearm. Why would you want to give me a gun? No.
If you look back when the Second Amendment was written, a militia was just an ordinary group of citizens that were armed, and so the National Guard is a part of the U.S. government, so therefore it can't be a militia. And so I think it's really important that you exercise your right to keep and bear arms. I'm not saying everyone should go out and buy a gun, but if you've never committed a felony and you're in the mental and physical state to be able to possess a firearm safely, I think that if you choose to do that, that's a good thing.
Here, we want to make sure that, hey, the government's not going to get out of control, so let's give everyone, you can have the right to own a weapon and defend yourself, which makes sense, but at this point in time, we've developed so many weapons that are so easy. Back then, it was you get one shot, you have to clean your barrel and do whatever. And now it's you can just mow 3 people with the weapons. So I think that the Second Amendment is outdated. And look at our Constitution. We always, we keep revising it as things come up. As we finally solve problems, then we put into motion amendments to it. And I think the Second Amendment needs to be it needs to be changed. It needs to be formatted so that it's with, you have a reason to have a gun, or you are a stable person that can have a gun.
To say that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That statement is solid, it's accurate, and I stand behind it 100%.
In my mind, that means that people that can prove their competency should have the right to bear arms in case they need to be called upon to enact that militia.
let me turn this question around to you and ask you what you feel.
Not guns! Not guns! Hugs, not guns! Hugs, not guns! Hugs, not guns! Hugs, not
That's why I love her.